Chosen one, have you noticed something strange happening lately? People who used to ignore you are suddenly paying attention. Conversations about you are increasing, and without you saying anything, it feels like your presence is being recognized everywhere you go. Small things about you that were never mentioned before are now being noticed. Your silence is being interpreted, your actions are being observed more closely, and your name seems to carry a different weight than it used to. It's as if something that was once hidden is no longer hidden anymore, and people can't quite explain why they're reacting to you this way. The truth is, you didn't suddenly become someone new. Nothing about your essence changed overnight. It's just that now, people are starting to see who you have always been. And in this moment, the secret is no longer a secret. Chosen one, you kept telling yourself you needed more time, more preparation, more confidence before stepping into who you were meant to be, thinking that one day you would finally feel ready. But what you didn't understand is that Allah never waits for your comfort. He moves when your soul has been shaped enough through struggle, patience, and quiet transformation. All those moments you thought were breaking you, the sleepless nights, the silent tears, the confusion, the rejection, were actually building you into someone stronger, wiser, and more grounded than before, even if you couldn't see it at the time. And now, even though a part of you still feels unsure and questions why things are happening so suddenly, Allah sees a version of you that has already grown beyond your past limits, a version that can carry responsibility, attention, and purpose without collapsing under pressure, which is why your identity is being revealed not to overwhelm or expose you, but to position you exactly where you are meant to stand. Because if Allah waited until you felt completely comfortable, you would stay hidden forever. And this moment is proof that, in His eyes, you are no longer the person who needed to hide. You are the person who is ready to be seen. Chosen one, there was a time when you could walk into any room and go unnoticed, when your presence blended in and no one paid close attention to you. But something has shifted now, something you can't fully explain. Even if you stay quiet, even if you don't try to stand out, people still feel you. It's in the way they look at you a little longer, the way conversations change when you're around, the way some feel drawn to you while others seem uncomfortable for no clear reason. And the truth is, it's not about what you say anymore, it's about what you carry. Because when Allah places light, depth, and awareness inside a person, it naturally begins to radiate without effort. Your energy starts speaking before your words ever do. And that's why the secret couldn't stay hidden, because what's within you has grown too strong to be contained, too real to be ignored, and too powerful to remain invisible. So even if you try to stay in the background, even if you try to keep things low, your presence will still be felt. Because this is no longer about trying to be seen, this is about becoming someone whose existence itself speaks. Chosen one of the most unsettling parts of this journey is realizing that the same people who once overlooked you, doubted you, or treated you like you were ordinary are now reacting to you in ways that feel unfamiliar, almost confusing, because deep down you know you haven't suddenly become someone new overnight. You're still you, still carrying the same heart, the same thoughts, the same quiet nature. But what has changed is what Allah has allowed others to finally see. Because there was a time when your value was hidden, your depth was covered, and your presence didn't fully register in their eyes. And during that phase, people interacted with you based on a limited version of who you were, often underestimating you, dismissing you, or not taking you seriously. but now something has shifted in the unseen, something has been lifted, and suddenly your presence carries a different weight, your words land differently, your silence feels louder, and people who once ignored you now find themselves paying attention without even understanding why. Some of them feel drawn toward you, curious about you, wanting to be around you, while others feel uneasy, even intimidated, because your growth silently confronts them with their own stagnation. And this is where it becomes important not to get lost in their reactions, because this shift is not about proving them wrong or seeking their validation. It's about recognizing that Allah is changing how you are perceived for a reason, that He is allowing your true identity to be seen at the exact moment it aligns with your purpose. And while it may feel strange to be treated differently by the same people who once saw you as insignificant, you must understand that their new perception is not creating your value. It is simply catching up to what was always there, because your worth was never defined by their blindness. It was only hidden until the right time. And now that time has come, which means you are stepping into a phase where you must stop seeing yourself through the lens of who you used to be in their eyes, and start embracing who you have become in the sight of Allah. Because the moment people begin to feel you differently is often the moment your true role begins to unfold. Chosen one. This is where many people misunderstand what's really happening, because when your identity starts becoming visible and people begin to notice you, talk about you, and react to your presence, it can feel like you've finally reached a reward after everything you've been through. But in reality, this stage is not just a reward. It is also a serious test, because your environment begins to change. More eyes are on you, more opinions are being formed about you, and suddenly you are no longer moving in silence. You are moving in a space where people are observing you, analyzing you, and sometimes even judging you without fully understanding you. And this is where the real challenge begins, because it is easy to stay true to yourself when no one is paying attention, but it becomes much harder when attention increases, when people start praising you, expecting more from you, or even criticizing you, and all of this can slowly pull you away from who you truly are if you are not careful, because you may start adjusting yourself to fit what others expect, trying to maintain a certain image, or trying to control how people see you. But you have to remember something very important. Your purpose was never to impress people or gain their approval. Your purpose is to stay aligned with what is right and true, because the moment you start chasing people's opinions, you begin to lose the connection that made you strong in the first place. And that is why this exposure is a test of your character, your humility, and your self-control. It is testing whether you can handle attention without becoming arrogant, whether you can stay grounded when people start recognizing your value, and whether you can remain authentic when there is pressure to change. Because many people do not fail when life is difficult. They fail when life becomes easier, when they are seen, praised, and elevated. So this moment is not just about being revealed. It is about proving that you can carry this new level without losing yourself, that you can be noticed without becoming prideful, and that you can stand in the spotlight without forgetting the journey that brought you here. Because if you handle this stage correctly, it will raise you even higher. But if you lose yourself in it, it can quietly pull you away from everything you worked so hard to build. Chosen one. This is the part of your journey that can feel the most confusing, the most emotional, and at times even the most painful. Because when your identity starts becoming visible and your presence begins to carry weight, You might expect that people will celebrate you, support you, and finally recognize your worth. But instead, you start noticing something very different, something you didn't fully prepare for, and that is the quiet discomfort, the subtle distance, the unspoken tension that begins to grow in certain people around you. And it leaves you wondering, why does it feel like not everyone is happy for me? The truth is, not everyone will celebrate your revelation. Not everyone will feel joy when they see you rising. And not everyone will be able to handle the version of you that is finally stepping into the light. And this has nothing to do with you doing something wrong. It has everything to do with what your growth represents to them, because your presence becomes a mirror, and not everyone is ready to face what that mirror shows. Some people will see your discipline, and it will remind them of their lack of consistency. Some will see your growth, and it will highlight how they have remained stuck. Some will feel your confidence, and it will expose their insecurities. And instead of being inspired, they may feel uncomfortable, triggered, or even quietly threatened. And they won't always express it directly. It may come through subtle changes, less support, different energy, or a quiet distance that wasn't there before. And if you are not aware of what's happening, you might start blaming yourself, questioning your actions, wondering if you did something to push them away. But you have to understand this deeply. Your elevation naturally creates separation, because not everyone is meant to walk with you into your next level. Some people were only assigned to a previous chapter of your life, and their role had an expiration that you could not see at the time. And now that you are evolving, that connection no longer aligns in the same way. And while this realization can hurt, it is also necessary, because holding on to people who are uncomfortable with your growth will only force you to shrink yourself to maintain their comfort, and you were not created to stay small just so others can feel at ease. You were created to grow, to expand, and to step fully into your purpose without apology. And this is where your emotional strength is tested, because you have to learn how to accept that not everyone who started with you will continue with you. You have to learn how to let go without bitterness, without anger, and without trying to prove your worth to people who cannot see it, because your value does not increase when people recognize it. It was always there. It is simply becoming visible now, and the right people, the ones who are aligned with your growth, will naturally recognize it without resistance. They will support you without feeling threatened. They will celebrate you without feeling diminished. And those are the people who are meant to remain in your life as you move forward. But for everyone else, you must allow distance to happen without forcing connection, without chasing validation, and without trying to convince them of who you are. Because the more you try to explain yourself to those who are uncomfortable with your light, the more you drain your own energy. And this journey is not about being understood by everyone. It is about staying true to yourself, even when you are misunderstood. And that is not easy, because there is a part of you that still wants acceptance, still wants harmony, still wants everyone to be on good terms. But growth often requires you to step into spaces where not everyone agrees with you, not everyone supports you, and not everyone feels comfortable around you. And that does not mean you have to become cold or distant as a person. It simply means you have to become selective with your energy, protective of your peace, and clear about your direction. Because the moment you start dimming your light to make others comfortable, you begin to disconnect from the very path that is meant for you. And that is a loss far greater than losing people who cannot walk that path with you. So instead of focusing on who is not celebrating you, shift your focus to who is aligned with you, who understands you, who supports your growth without hesitation. because those connections will feel natural, they will not require you to shrink, and they will not make you question your worth. And at the same time, develop the strength to walk alone if necessary, because there will be moments in your journey where support is limited, where understanding is rare, and where you have to rely on your own conviction to keep moving forward. And that is where true growth happens, when you are no longer dependent on external validation to continue your path, when you are no longer affected by who stays or who leaves, when your focus becomes so clear that distractions lose their power over you. And in those moments, you begin to understand that this journey was never about being accepted by everyone. It was about becoming who you were meant to be, regardless of who understands it. And once you reach that level of clarity, something inside you shifts. You stop chasing approval, you stop over-explaining yourself, and you stop feeling the need to be validated by people who cannot see your vision. And that is when your growth becomes unstoppable, because you are no longer moving based on people's reactions, you are moving based on purpose, and that is a completely different level of strength. So, if you are noticing that not everyone is celebrating you, do not let that discourage you. Do not let it make you question your path, and do not let it pull you back into a smaller version of yourself, because this is a natural part of elevation. This is what happens when you step into a higher level of awareness, discipline, and purpose. And while it may feel lonely at times, it is also a sign that you are moving in the right direction, because not everyone is meant to go where you are going, and that is not a loss. It is a necessary separation that creates space for the right people, the right opportunities, and the right environment to enter your life. So keep moving forward, keep growing, and most importantly, keep being true to who you are becoming, because at the end of the day, you were never meant to be understood by everyone. You were meant to fulfill a purpose that only a few will truly recognize, and that is more than enough, chosen one. There comes a point in your journey where you can no longer go back to who you used to be, no matter how much you may sometimes miss the simplicity of being unnoticed, no matter how tempting it feels to shrink yourself just to keep things easy, because once your identity has been revealed and your presence has started to carry weight, something inside you changes permanently. And that change is not just external, it is deeply internal. It is in the way you think, the way you see the world, the way you respond to situations, and the way you carry yourself even in silence. And this is why trying to go back and fit into spaces you have outgrown begins to feel uncomfortable, forced, and even exhausting, because your soul knows that you are no longer that person. Your mindset has expanded, your awareness has deepened, and your purpose has become clearer, even if you are still figuring things out step by step. And this is the stage where many people struggle because they try to balance two identities, the old version of themselves that felt safe and familiar, and the new version that feels powerful, but also comes with responsibility. And this internal conflict can drain you, because one part of you wants comfort, while the other is being pulled toward growth. But the truth is, you cannot fully step into your purpose while holding on to a version of yourself that was only meant for a previous chapter. And this is not just your story, this is a pattern that has existed throughout history, even in the lives of the prophets, where once their identity and mission became clear, there was no returning to a life of normalcy or invisibility. For example, the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, before revelation was known for honesty, trustworthiness, and a quiet, respected presence among his people. But once the truth was revealed to him, everything changed. His identity was no longer just that of a trusted individual. It became the identity of a messenger carrying a responsibility that could not be hidden, and despite the difficulty, the rejection, and the pressure that followed, he could not step back into the comfort of his previous life, because his mission required him to stand firm, to speak truth, and to carry a message that would impact generations. And in the same way, Prophet Musa, peace be upon him, lived a life where he initially distanced himself from the very place he would later be sent back to. But once he was chosen and commanded to confront Pharaoh, he could not avoid that responsibility, even though it was overwhelming, even though he felt fear and hesitation, because when Allah chooses someone for a purpose, returning to comfort is no longer an option. And even Prophet Yusuf, peace be upon him, who experienced hardship, betrayal, and isolation, could not remain hidden forever, because his destiny was to rise, to be seen, and to take on a role that required visibility, leadership, and strength. And these examples are not just stories. They are reminders that being chosen comes with a shift that cannot be reversed. And while your situation may not be at the level of prophethood, the pattern still reflects in your own journey in a way that fits your life. Because once your awareness grows and your identity becomes clear, you cannot pretend to be unaware again. Once you develop strength through struggle, you cannot genuinely return to a weaker mindset. And once your purpose begins to unfold, you cannot find peace in a life that lacks meaning. And this is why trying to shrink yourself now creates discomfort within you, because it goes against who you have become. And while there may be moments where you wish things were simpler, where you wish you could just blend in again and avoid the pressure that comes with being seen, you have to remind yourself that this transformation did not happen by accident. It was built through experiences that were meant to prepare you for this exact stage. And going back would mean ignoring everything you have learned, everything you have endured, and everything you have grown into. And that is not something your soul will allow anymore. So instead of resisting this new version of yourself, you have to accept it fully. You have to step into it with confidence, even if it feels uncomfortable at first, because growth always comes with discomfort, and purpose always comes with responsibility. And the more you embrace who you are becoming, the more natural it will feel over time, and the less you will feel the need to return to who you used to be, because you will start to realize that you did not lose your old self. You outgrew it, and there is a difference. Losing something creates emptiness, but outgrowing something creates space for something greater, and that space is where your next level exists. And yes, this journey may feel lonely at times. It may feel like not everyone understands you, and it may feel like you are walking a path that requires more from you than you expected, but that is the nature of growth. It separates you from what no longer aligns with you and guides you toward what does, and the more you accept this, the more peace you will find in your transformation, because you will stop fighting the process and start trusting it, knowing that every step forward is taking you closer to the person you were meant to become. And just like the prophets, peace be upon them, did not step back from their mission once it was revealed to them, you too must learn to move forward without looking back, not out of pressure, but out of understanding that your journey has already shifted, your role has already begun, and your path now requires you to stand fully in who you are, without shrinking, without hiding, and without doubting the growth that brought you here. Chosen one, this is the moment everything has been quietly leading toward. Even when you couldn't see it, even when nothing made sense, even when it felt like your life was moving in circles instead of forward. Because what you are experiencing right now is not random, it is not accidental, and it is not something that just suddenly appeared out of nowhere. This is the beginning of your mission becoming real. And the reason it feels so intense, so overwhelming, and sometimes even so unexpected, is because deep down you always knew there was something different about your path, something that didn't align with the ordinary way of living, thinking, or existing. But for a long time, that feeling stayed buried under doubt, under distraction, under the pressure to fit in and be like everyone else. And now that everything is being revealed, now that your presence is being felt, now that people are starting to notice you in ways they didn't before, it's like that hidden truth inside you is finally coming to the surface. And while part of you feels a sense of clarity, another part of you feels the weight of responsibility that comes with it. Because stepping into your mission is not just about being seen, it's about being accountable to something greater than your comfort, greater than your fears, and greater than your old identity. And this is where your mindset has to shift completely, because if you still see this as something that is happening to you, you will feel overwhelmed. But when you understand that this is something happening through you, everything begins to change, because your life is no longer just about your personal experiences, your emotions, or your individual journey. It becomes connected to impact, influence, and the way you affect the people and environment around you. And that realization can feel heavy at first, because it requires you to move with intention, to think before you act, to be aware of how your energy, your words, and your decisions shape not just your life, but the lives of others as well. And that level of awareness is not something everyone reaches, but it is something that defines those who are truly stepping into their purpose. And the truth is, your mission does not always start with something big, loud, or dramatic. It often begins in small, quiet ways, in the way you carry yourself, in the way you respond to challenges, in the way you treat people, in the standards you set for your own life. Because before your impact reaches the outside world, it must first become solid within you. And this is why everything you went through before this moment was necessary, because it built the foundation you are now standing on. Every hardship taught you something. Every delay strengthened your patience. Every moment of confusion forced you to grow in ways comfort never could. And now all of that is coming together, not as separate experiences, but as preparation for what comes next. And this is why you can no longer afford to doubt yourself the way you used to. You can no longer afford to play small, to hide your abilities, or to pretend that you don't see what is unfolding in your life. Because once your mission begins to reveal itself, ignoring it only creates inner conflict, a feeling of being stuck, restless, or disconnected. And that's because your soul knows that you are meant for more, even if your mind is still catching up to that reality. And one of the biggest shifts you will experience at this stage is how you start viewing your challenges. Because instead of seeing them as obstacles, you begin to recognize them as part of your assignment, as situations that are shaping you, refining you, and preparing you for higher levels of responsibility. And this doesn't mean the journey becomes easy. In fact, in many ways it becomes more demanding, because now you are more aware, more conscious, and more intentional. And that means you feel things more deeply, you notice things more clearly, and you cannot ignore what once went unnoticed. But at the same time, you also develop a strength that allows you to handle these challenges differently, with more patience, more control, and more clarity. And that is what sets you apart, because your mission is not just about reaching a destination. It is about becoming someone who can sustain that level, who can carry that responsibility without breaking under pressure. And this is why consistency becomes so important at this stage, because it is not enough to understand your purpose. You have to live it daily, through your actions, your discipline, and your choices, even when no one is watching, because real impact is built in private before it is recognized in public. And there will be moments where you feel alone on this path, moments where it seems like no one fully understands what you are going through. And that can be challenging, but it is also part of the process, because it teaches you independence, self-trust, and the ability to move forward without relying on constant validation. And this is where your confidence must come from within, from the understanding that you are walking a path that was designed specifically for you, not for everyone else to understand or approve of. And as you continue moving forward, you will start to notice that your life naturally begins to align in ways that support your mission. The right opportunities, the right connections, and the right environments will start appearing, often in ways you didn't expect. And at the same time, anything that does not align will begin to fade away, sometimes slowly, sometimes suddenly, but always with purpose. And while this process can feel uncomfortable, it is necessary, because it clears the space for what is meant to stay. And this is why trust becomes one of the most important qualities you can develop at this stage. Trusting that even when things don't make sense, there is a direction behind it. Trusting that even when the path feels uncertain, you are being guided. And trusting that everything happening is contributing to something greater than what you can currently see. And as you step deeper into this phase, you will also begin to understand that your mission is not about perfection. It is about growth, it is about progress, and it is about showing up consistently despite your fears, your doubts, and your uncertainties. Because waiting to feel completely ready will only delay what is already meant to begin. And the truth is, you grow into your mission by walking in it, not by waiting on the sidelines. And this is where courage comes into play. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it, to take action even when you are unsure, and to trust that each step you take will reveal the next one. And over time, what once felt overwhelming will start to feel natural. What once felt unfamiliar will become part of who you are. And what once felt like pressure will transform into purpose. And that is when you truly begin to understand that this journey was never meant to be easy. It was meant to be meaningful. It was meant to shape you into someone who can not only reach a higher level, but maintain it with strength, integrity, and clarity. And as you continue forward, remember this: your mission is not defined by how quickly you succeed or how many people recognize you. It is defined by how consistently you stay true to your path, how well you handle the responsibilities placed in front of you, and how much you grow through the process. Because in the end, this is not just about what you achieve, it is about who you become, and that is the real purpose behind everything you are experiencing right now. So do not doubt this moment. Do not question why things are unfolding the way they are. And do not try to go back to a version of yourself that no longer fits, because this is your beginning, this is your activation, and this is the point where your life stops being ordinary and starts becoming intentional, guided, and aligned with something far greater than you ever imagined. And the more you accept that, the more powerful your journey will become. Because you will no longer be resisting the process, you will be walking with it, fully aware that you are exactly where you are meant to be, doing exactly what you are meant to do, one step at a time. Co. Non-clusion, chosen one. As we come to the end of this message, take a moment to reflect on everything you've just heard, because none of it is random, and none of it is meant to overwhelm you. It is meant to awaken clarity within you, so you can understand your current stage without fear or confusion. What you are experiencing right now is not a coincidence. It is a transition, a shift from who you used to be into who you are becoming, and with that shift comes visibility, awareness, responsibility, and sometimes even discomfort. But all of it is part of a process that is shaping you into someone stronger, more aware, and more aligned with your purpose. The fact that your identity feels more visible now, that people react to you differently, that your presence carries a different weight, is not something to resist or run away from. It is something to understand and handle with maturity, because this is the point where your inner growth begins to reflect outwardly, and your life starts to move in a direction that is no longer random, but intentional and guided. So instead of questioning why things are changing, focus on how you respond to the change, because that is where your real power lies. Stay grounded in who you are, stay consistent in your values, and remain patient with the process, even when things feel uncertain or unfamiliar. Not everyone will understand your journey, and not everyone is meant to walk it with you, but that does not take away from the validity of your path. Keep your intentions pure, keep your actions sincere, and continue moving forward with confidence in the direction you are being led. Over time, things will begin to make sense, connections will align, opportunities will appear, and the pieces that once felt scattered will start coming together in a way that only becomes clear in hindsight.